Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Secretary General of AAOIFI, Dr. Hamid Hassan Mira, and the staff of AAOIFI for once again putting together this magnificent conference. Also, I would like to thank His Excellency, Sheikh Ibrahim bin Khalifa Al Khalifa, the Chairman of the Board of Trustees of AAOIFI, and the CBB under the leadership of Governor Rashid Al-Maraj, who have always supported this joint World Bank AAOIFI conference. It's really remarkable that this is the 12th anniversary of this conference, and as the saying goes, how time flies. And I feel truly privileged to be a keynote speaker once again at this conference. As many of you probably know, at the World Bank, we have a mission to eliminate extreme poverty by the year 2030, whether it's poverty by choice or poverty without choice. And for us, we also want to boost shared prosperity, because in many countries, we have seen that growth does not trickle down to many people, and you see a lot of inequality in many countries. So not only are we focused on poverty, we are also focused on addressing problems of inequality. And in the pursuit of this mission, we strongly believe that Islamic finance has a role to play, because several features of Islamic finance, as many of you in this room know better than I do, have strong connections with development challenges and addressing development challenges. Islamic finance talks about inclusion. It talks about helping the underprivileged. It talks about helping the poor. So we believe that we can mobilize Islamic finance to support our goals of eliminating extreme poverty and boosting shared prosperity. It's therefore not surprising that Islamic finance over the last few years has become an important part of our work program. And if you allow me, I'll share with you some examples of some of the work we are doing in this area, as well as some of the plans we have in the pipeline. Because in moving forward, we'll continue to rely on our partnership with many of you, which has been really critical in supporting our accomplishments in this area to date. Since 2013, we've been operating a global Islamic finance center in Istanbul with financial support from the Turkish authorities. And this center has become a well-known knowledge hub for Islamic finance, conducting research and training, as well as providing technical assistance and advisory services. And through the center, earlier this year, we released the first global report on Islamic finance in collaboration with the Islamic Development Bank. And this report focused on Islamic finance and shared prosperity. As I mentioned earlier, we believe that Islamic finance has a key role to play in boosting shared prosperity. We also recently published a book on realizing the value proposition of the Takafu industry, jointly with the IFSB. And at this point, we are also in the final stages of publishing a book with Sibafi on the corporate governance practices in Islamic banks. Why are we doing all this? Because we believe that the amount of knowledge in the Islamic finance industry is relatively limited. We have way more questions than answers, and we believe that as the World Bank, it's our role to work with different stakeholders to expand the available knowledge so that we can then formulate the appropriate policies to support the sustainable growth of this industry. The collaboration with stakeholders is very, very important to us, and we greatly value it because it helps us to expand the coverage of what we do, and we think that this is critical if we are going to move Islamic finance industry forward. The more questions we ask, the more answers we can get, and working together with different stakeholders allows us to get more reliable answers to the questions that we pose. In addition to the research and analytical work, we've also been doing a series of training activities in partnership with the Arab Monetary Fund in Abu Dhabi. And to date, we've developed training programs for several participants from across the Arab world on topics such as development of sukuk markets, development of takaful industries, regulation and supervision of Islamic banking. These training events specifically targeted policymakers and regulators from member countries of the Arab League, and we see this as critical to laying the solid foundations for Islamic finance in these countries. A growing area of our work is technical assistance to strengthen various elements of Islamic finance in individual countries. For example, we are currently supporting the central banks in Bangladesh and Kyrgyzstan to strengthen their frameworks for regulation and supervision. And despite the ongoing conflict in Libya, we are still engaged with the Central Bank of Libya in designing a multi-year strategy or master plan for the development of Islamic banking in the country. We hope, inshallah, when peace comes, we'll be able to implement some of the elements of this multi-year master plan. Now, in the coming months, we are gearing up to provide additional engagements and advisory work in several countries as part of our work to push Islamic finance at the country level. Going forward, our work is going to focus on designing and deploying Islamic financial instruments. If you go to many conferences like this, we all talk about how wonderful Islamic finance is in terms of the instruments, and now we want to see these instruments actually deployed at the country level to support specific developmental goals. Again, this is in line with our view that there's a strong linkage between Islamic finance and our goals of fighting poverty. Therefore, the World Bank is committed to expanding the use of Sharia-compliant modes of financing in our operations, particularly for financing SMEs, infrastructure, business innovation, as well as green investments. Notably, in June this year, the World Bank provided advisory services and technical support to structure the first green sukuk in Malaysia, an accomplishment which was made possible by our partnership with key stakeholders in Malaysia. In light of the pervasive financial exclusion, which some of the speakers have alluded to, we also see that Islamic finance can help to expand the range of financial services available to individuals in different countries around the world. We are convinced that this will help to further expand the reach to the unbanked segments of society, particularly in those majority Muslim countries where Islamic finance has a huge potential to grow more. However, we also see promise of Islamic finance in countries that are not majority Muslim. And across the world, we are beginning to see a growing interest from these countries because they see Islamic finance as ethical and moral and relevant to their goals. However, one message we are passing along over and over to many of our clients is that Islamic financial services are accessible to everybody, regardless of religion. So the potential impact of improving financial inclusion is much bigger than we may think. And I think one example of this is in the state of Virginia in the United States, where now you do have Sharia-compliant mortgage services available to citizens and anybody who wants to avail themselves of these services. And I think this is a dramatic example of how Islamic finance is penetrating even in Western countries that are not majority Muslim. In conclusion, I would like to say that even though we are excited about the potential of Islamic finance and the possibilities, we are also very realistic, and we are not blind to the challenges that face the industry at present. We should continue to remember that in relative terms, the Islamic finance industry in its current form is still relatively young and in early stages of development. So there are always teething problems that we need to overcome. Several challenges remain, and many of these challenges you are very familiar with, so I will not go into listing them. And these challenges we can address together because working together gives us a better chance of actually solving these problems. But this morning, I would like to let you know that the World Bank is fully committed to working with all key stakeholders to address these challenges, which include the legal, regulatory, and institutional foundations of Islamic finance and fostering the development of relevant products and services. As we have done in the past few years, we will continue to promote the systematic and sustained use of knowledge and lessons of experience to raise awareness, to build consensus, and to foster the advancement of Islamic finance globally. Once again, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here this morning, and I thank you for your attention.